There is a famous bug that Paul McCartney calls home at age 83. The person whose music changed the world is not living the crazy rock and roll life that fans would expect. To find the peaceful and unusual spot he now shares with his beloved wife Nancy Shev from cities full of people, from yelling fans to this quiet private hideaway. McCartney's journey has been nothing short of amazing. Let's take a look. Take a look inside the house where this famous musician lives now. 24th Road, Liverpool. Paul McCartney's childhood home is on 24th Road in the Allerton neighborhood of Liverpool. Is a very important place for music and culture, though. Even though it doesn't look like much, this small terrace house is a holy place for Beatles fans and music historians alike. The house was home to a young Paul McCartney and his family from 1955 to 1964. After Paul's death, it would be the site of some of the most important events in modern music history. Mother Mary McCartney in 1956, and Paul's dad Jim played the part of raising Paul and his brother Michael by themselves in this small. Yet, even though the family didn't have much money, Jim supported musical. He liked to play the piano and teach his sons to love music and harmony. He did this in the front living room of soon 20th Land Road, turned into a makeshift practice room where Paul and he got together with his friend John Lennon, whom he met in 1957, to write songs, play around with chord progressions, and get better at their early acts. Is what makes 24th Land Road stand out. It is important because it is often called the home of the Beatles. Not just because Paul lived there, but also because this is where the Beatles wrote their first songs together. Truly began a long time before the bright lights of fame. Paul and John sat upon, they wrote songs and played their guitars on the plush floor or on the worn-out sofa. Some of their first songs, which would later be on the Beatles' first records, were written by them. Here, amid simple furniture and the sounds of working-class life, while some famous people's childhood homes end up as footnotes in their biographies, Paul's house at 4th Land Road was an active part of the Beatles' early years of making music. It was here that songs like "I Saw Her Standing There" and "Love Me Do" were born. This isn't in a slick studio. It's in a place that is more intimate and raw than any other. The home was also where the Quarrymen and the Skiffle played their first practices. Group that existed before the Beatles and had both Lennon and McCartney in it, who knew how important it was historically. The National Trust bought the house in 1995, which is not often that they do something like that. Usually take care of much older sites, and their goal was to keep the house looking like it did during McCartney's childhood with the help of another camera, McCartney's younger brother Mike, and part of the band Scaffold in the 1960s. The Trust fixed up the house with great care, and many of the original furniture, flooring, and even small household items were either kept or copied exactly. 24th Road is open to the public today, making a visit feel like going back in time. People on guided tours that are often small and full of stories. Tour guides give background information on the life of the McCartney family and show tourists how a musical revolution got its start. In the living room, Paul and John wrote songs. In the kitchen, the family ate together. And in Paul's, he had a small bedroom in preserving 24th Road where he would sometimes play the guitar. The National Trust has not only protected buildings, but also a very important part of modern music history. Brings to mind the moving idea that art that changes the world can come from the strangest places. It is a holy place for Beatles fans and people who are interested in music history. 7. Cavendish Avenue, London in April 1965 was a deeply personal and deeply moving place. During the height of Beatlemania, Paul McCartney bought a 3-story home in the classy London neighborhood price of $40,000 in the St. John's Wood neighborhood, just a short walk from the house, which is near the famous Abbey Road studios, quickly became McCartney's main home in London and a center for, despite all of his creativity, friendships, and personal achievements, it still remains his. The house still serves as a live link to the crazy 1960s and prior years. McCartney was only 22 years old when the deal was made, and the Beatles were on the verge of becoming famous all over the world. For fame and fortune, the house was in a great spot. It was in one of London's most desired, and he lived in a quiet area, but it was also close to Abbey Road, where the Beatles were playing. As they worked on many of their records, it became a place of both rest and art, was a way to get away from the chaos of fame, and a place where history happened quietly behind closed doors. The house is a nice Georgian-style apartment that stands out for its beautiful building, many bedrooms, high ceilings, and a large garden in the back. It's a rare find in central London, and the inside is both comfortable and classy. From the mid-1960s on, McCartney's tastes changed over the years, and the house was always full of it. Was here that friends, singers, and other artists came and went. That McCartney started working on some of the songs he had written after the Beatles broke up, and kept playing with music. Even this house was where he lived while he was with Wings, and after he went solo in the late 1960s. Was where the Beatles, including John, got together on the spur of the moment to write songs and hang out late at night. Lennon and Harrison are known to have been there, and the house became a bit of a mystery among Beatles fans. In the middle of Beatlemania, Paul's longtime maid Rose is an urban oasis, and his beloved old English sheepdog Martha, who gave him ideas for Martha My Dear, were important parts of the family during this time. One of the most memorable events in the history of the house happened in October 2011, when McCartney set up, and after getting married to Nancy Shevell at the nearby Merillion Town Hall, he had a small wedding dinner there. The party was classy and low-key, with family and friends toasting the couple in the yard. Despite his McCartney is famous all over the world, but he has always had a very close connection with his London house, choosing its comfort over the grandeur that many famous people might seek. Hyde Park Farm, Kintyre, Britain in June 1966, at a time when the Beatles were becoming more famous than ever before. While under a lot of pressure from within, Paul McCartney bought a 183-acre farm in the middle of nowhere. The town of Campbelltown is tucked away on the western coast of Scotland's Kintyre Peninsula. This land would look great set among rolling hills, rocky rocks, and windswept seascapes. McCartney bought the house as a way to get away from the public eye, but it turned out to be much more than that. A place to get away from the fast-paced life of a world star, and, in the end, the farm had a lot of personal and artistic meaning for McCartney when he first bought it. Damage. The house was small and worn down from the weather. The sheds had not been maintained, and the land was overgrown. McCartney was underused, but he didn't see that as a bad thing. Instead, he saw it as a challenge. He was drawn to the property's simplicity and privacy, and it quickly became his refuge during this was the most difficult time for the Beatles, especially as problems within the band grew in the late 1960s. What really brought the farm to life, though, was his late Aunt Linda McCartney. His wife is a photographer and a huge animal fan. Linda played a key part in promoting an appreciation for nature and environmentally friendly living. The couple threw themselves into country life as they worked to fix up the farm. They learned how to take care of animals, work the land, and eat what they could grow and make together. They raised sheep and horses, grew their own food, and even made their own cheese. A peaceful contrast to the chaos of life in London and traveling around the world, McCartney was able to heal after the Beatles broke up in 1970 by spending some time away from the attention. As he changed his focus, the farm became the start of a new stage in his life and career. To family life and the formation of his new band Wings with Linda and former Moody Blues members for musician Denny Laine, living on a farm gave him the freedom to be creative and clear-headed. A fresh start to find a new identity outside of the Beatles. Perhaps the most famous ode to the farm came in McCartney's deeply nostalgic hit. Moral of the song, Kintyre, was written by Kintyre and Denny Laine, and it was played by the Campbelltown Pipe Band. To the peace and beauty of the place that had become his second home, with sad lyrics, traditional Scottish music Mull of Kintyre struck a chord with listeners, with its wide range of instruments and sweeping tune. It was one of McCartney's biggest solo hits around the world, even bigger than it was the first song by the Beatles to sell more than 2 million copies in the UK. Britain over the years, the farm has stayed a very important part of McCartney. Even after Linda died in 1998, Paul kept going to see her. Taking care of the land and remembering how important it was to him throughout his life, McCartney can find a quiet place away from the cameras and stages to think, recover, and get back in touch with the land. I fell in love with Blossomwood Farm in Pease Marsh, North Sussex in 1973. Not long after setting up his beloved Kintyre farm in Scotland, Paul McCartney bought a 160-acre farm to add to the land he already owned in the country. East Sussex, England. This new property was bought at the same time as the farm in Kintyre. Meant to be a getaway where McCartney could get away from the stresses of fame, get ideas, and get lost himself in the rhythms of country life. But this place was tucked away in the rolling hills. The southern English hills also came to represent a stronger bond with nature, family, and the heritage of the Beatles. This East Sussex farm would be yet another beautiful place to escape to. For McCartney, one where he could be alone and keep quiet. The site is known because of its vast scenery and rich farmland, which McCartney farmed with the same care and attention he had shown to spend a lot of money on his farm. The land grows many kinds of crops, and over time McCartney has also taken care of horses, other animals, a yard that focuses on sustainability, and with a direct link to the land. The farm is very private, surrounded by beautiful nature, and far from the action. Because McCartney's public life is often crazy, the fir tree on the estate is one of the most moving things about it. Putting this tree on the grounds was a very special gift from George Harrison, McCartney's friend and fellow Beatle, and it's very important to Harrison because of their connection. With McCartney having been through a lot of ups and downs, he gave the tree to his longtime friend just before he died. In 2001, the tree still stands as a living memorial to their wonderful bond. Harrison, an outdoors lover and spiritual people, would have understood what it meant for the fir tree to grow on the land as a sign of life growth. The long-lasting bond between the two singers has changed over the years as McCartney's relationship with the estate has grown. In the past few years, it has become an even more important safe place not only for him, but also for his family. During the COVID-19 pandemic, millions of people around the world had their lives changed by lockdowns and travel restrictions. McCartney decided he was by himself at this home until his daughter Mary McCartney, who is the famous photographer. McCartney had a rare chance to spend more time with his kids and grandkids away from because of the stress of public speaking and the outside world's distractions. McCartney, who had spent a lot of his life moving around, used this time to think and get back in touch with people. During this time, McCartney also worked on his music and thought about his life while living on the farm. During his work, the estate's peace and beauty in the country let him focus on his work and keep making things even though the pandemic was hard this time. And being alone also caused his album McCartney 3 to come out in 2020. Introspective work that he mostly taped by himself in the quiet of his many homes, including this one. The album's themes of being alone, thinking about yourself, and internal reflection. Many people who heard it were going through their own kinds of loneliness during the pandemic. In the East, McCartney's Sussex farm is more than just a place for him to relax. It shows how much he loves nature and wants to protect it, keeping family ties strong and his artistic spirit alive, as he has done his whole farm. This land is an idealized picture of life in the country, where McCartney can find peace, inspiration, and a sense of keeping his feet on the ground. This farm reminds him that land has always been an important part of who he is and how he makes art. Even though he is famous all over the world, he has always looked for the simple pleasures in life, like taking care of the farm, having fun with family and friends, or thinking about the past. East Hampton home. Beginning in New York in 1998, Paul McCartney bought a lovely. The house is 2,300 square feet and is in Amagansett, a small village on Long Island's South Fork, New York, for $495,000. The buy was a big deal. The late Linda McCartney Paul, who was Paul's beloved wife, and who loved the area and its natural beauty. Linda Amagansett saw beauty as a peaceful way to get away from the attention of others. She loved the place because it was a peaceful place where she could connect with nature and enjoy a slower pace of life. Finally led the McCartneys to buy a home that would give them the peace and privacy they were looking for. They wanted to get away from the constant attention of fame and the stress of their busy lives. The land is in a vast 22-acre land that gives the McCartney family a unique sense of privacy in one of New York's most exclusive neighborhoods. The large grounds give people a lot of room to relax and explore with its peaceful and private surroundings. The estate gives a one-of-a-kind experience.